Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Colony. So, running through the things that happened in this episode, we had Will and Devin kind of joining up because, to get to Solomon, they have to basically meet the certain quota, because Devin's a bounty hunter, kind of doing her own profession. It's kind of interesting in this new world that both Devin and Will ended up technically going back to the jobs they originally had before their arrival happened, so it's kind of interesting. But essentially, they capture people, because apparently in the zone that they're in right now, it's like, why has it been really left alone? Why isn't it part of the wall and stuff like that? Why is there no occupation or red hats there? Well, essentially, Devin was explaining that basically things kind of went out of control. Red hats kind of left the place alone because essentially it seems like a lot of those people because Will ended up capturing a woman and ended up taking her and turning her in, and he ends up seeing a whole bunch of caged people. Apparently there's kind of a quota that the warlords, interesting enough, there's warlords. Solomon isn't the only one. Apparently there's a lot of them. We haven't really get an exact number of how many there are exactly, but there's a whole bunch of warlords, and they have a certain quota. Rumor is that if they meet a certain number of quota of people captured, those people are handed over to the occupation and they get left alone. They never meddle in the host business. The hosts don't meddle in their business. So whether those people get shipped off to the farm or not, I don't know. At first, Devin doesn't tell Will that, obviously because it's rumors, but also she knew that if she had told Will ahead of time, Will would have been super reluctant about turning that woman in. But then it kind of comes up to the conversation of, well, you kind of have to do a lot of stuff to kind of, he admits, he's like, I'm not the same person I used to be. You end up kind of compromising your own beliefs in this new world, just doing whatever it takes to survive. And as you can see, Devin does the same thing. I'm sure she's not all for handing over people. I'm sure these particular people they're handing over, particular woman they handed over this episode was a teacher. So it's I doubt she did anything drastic, but they probably just pick people, maybe certain people they feel maybe they pick people they feel are weak. It's oh, she's a teacher, so she can't be that big of a... It's kind of in this particular sect in Santa Monica, it's kind of kind of a survival of the fittest type of situation. Either you're strong or you get devoured by the strong type of situation. Especially the whole conversation with Solomon, who's just a freaking legitimate an asshole, especially kind of rubbing it in Will's face. It's Will's I'll give you the transit pass. She's this is valuable. I don't know if it's as valuable as Charlie. Charlie is one of my good workers and stuff. It's this is his son, but it's he kind of seems like he wants to get more out of Will, even though he has a transit pass, which will literally let him go into anywhere he wants to. But it's it's valuable and everything, but it's I could squeeze a little bit more out of it because he is your son. It's the fact that, it's Will, Charlie had a mind of his own, but it's he's a good worker, he's a good kid, but the fact is he had a mind of his own. We had to break that in him. So what that means is, he's I know you're mad at me. I can tell, because Will was just taking everything he can, not just to take Solomon down there, but he's the fact is you should be grateful for me, because if it wasn't for me, where were you in this entire year? You've been out of your son's life. The fact is, it's because of me that he's still alive. So show a little gratitude. He's you let me see my son? I give you all the gratitude in the world. And then when he met up with Charlie, Charlie was very reserved and didn't know how to act. I was wondering, because he said a douchebag thing. Solomon said a douchebag thing of being hey, your son is different. The streets change him. Don't be surprised if your son decides that he doesn't want to go with you. And then there's a whole situation where Solomon is looking at the reunion and everything, and you see Charlie looking at Solomon. It comes up later on why, because he's even a little distant towards where he's do you want? Because Will's oh, you can't wait to see Gracie and Bram, and he's whatever, sure, I don't care, kind of. And he was going to run away, and it turns out that basically he has some marks on his legs from shackles. That basically the reason why he's trying to run away is because he made the mistake of trying to run away before, and Solomon said, he broke him. And it's no, if I run away, he's gonna hurt me again. It's Will's no, he's not gonna hurt you. He's gonna hurt my friends. He's not gonna hurt you. It's he's gonna hurt you. That's why he didn't want it to be as detached as possible, because he didn't want to get his hopes up, because for one, he knows if he goes with his dad, Solomon will track them down and hurt them and the rest of his family, and that's the main reason why. But I'm still thinking there's a possibility of Charlie isn't necessarily the person who was before. But nevertheless, Will got super pissed and just went on a killing spree, taking down people left and right. I'm not surprised. I kind of had a feeling it was going to happen, especially when that conversation happened earlier in the episode when he was talking to that dude. He's like, "Oh, you look familiar." He's like, "Oh, yeah, you stabbed me." He's like, "All right, that's right." And then Will was kind of holding his gun, and the guy kind of looked down on it and looked back at Will and was like, "Don't worry, no hard feelings." So went on a killing spree, taking everyone down. Was beaten. Well, it was originally Solomon who had a tire iron, but was beating him down with it, and then like had it against his neck and was choked. I guess he kept beating it further and further to kind of break his neck. I guess I don't know. He went super hardcore on him. Sadly, Solomon doesn't have the transit pass, so either he hid it somewhere else or he gave it to somebody else. Might have already traded it. But nevertheless, the kids are there, and Will's like, "Hey, I'm Charlie's dad. You'll be safe. Come with me." And they run away. It's like, well, it's understandable. They just saw what you did to Solomon. Two, it also might be because it's like, well, screw that. You got rid of Solomon. We're running away. Because because a lot of them have been damaged, so they feel like without Solomon, they have no one else. So it's kind of like that to fend for their own, which might mean they might go work for some other warlord or try to survive on their own, do something, because it's like they might not think they can survive on their own. No matter how bad things were with Solomon, he kept them alive. He taught them how to survive. So it's like now that he's gone, I don't know. It didn't seem like anyone was necessarily heartbroken over the situation, but it did probably it's like you just kill Solomon, so that makes you a little scary, but also because Solomon's dead, let's get the hell out of here type of thing. So very interesting, because the fact of the matter is we don't know what kind of ramification will suffer for this, because warlords probably have their own territory. It's probably like an equal power situation. It's like there's a balance kept because each of the warlords doesn't meddle with each other's business. So it's like now that Solomon's dead, the power struggle is going to be all over the place because people are going to be wanting Solomon's territory, anything that he had. And now Will's going to be at the front of it for being the one who killed him. And it might get the occupation involved because of the whole rumor situation. So it's like, oh, they'd be expecting Solomon's cut of people. But it's like now that that supply of people has been cut off because Will killed Solomon. He even brought up the fact that it's like, oh, why aren't people fighting back? And it's interesting considering your job was to catch the resistance. You were like pissed at the resistance. But I guess he's kind of had a change of mind subsequently since that. But it's like, I guess because he sees that in the block, they're in a much better situation than the people in Santa Monica because of I don't know. Like, it's just kind of interesting that he would have that conversation like, oh, why won't they fight back? It's like your job was basically to squash people from fighting back. But I guess, like I said, it's different circumstances because it's not the occupation they have to deal with. It's other people. So it's like, why not just stomp them out and just kind of do your own thing? But it's because the warlords, no matter how despicable they are, they have some level of control in its orders, and they bring order to Santa Monica. And even though it's chaotic, there is still a little order to that chaos. So like I said, I'm wondering, is it going to be a situation where the other warlords come after him, where they congratulate him? What's the situation going to be? Is it going to be something where Will kind of has to take his place, or Will needs to take his place, where Will release some of those people that were captured for Solomon's cut of like the people that need to be possibly sent to the farm? Then on the other side of the story, you've got like the whole Maddie situation. Like, oh man, we got to help with this Bram situation because Bram got transferred. It's like, oh, Nolan uses his clout to kind of be like, okay, Bram won't get sent to the farm, but hey, we can get it so that he gets sent to a labor camp instead. And Maddie says, oh, that's the good news. And Katie's like, good, that's good news? It's like, yeah, I mean, he'll do his work and he'll come back to you. Nolan's doing everything he can to help. But then she was kind of crying on the phone because I think there's a part of her that realized that wasn't 100% true. That's why Katie went to him. It's like, oh, I just want to know, come to you firsthand, face to face to see if you could actually do everything you do. It's like, no, I'm doing everything. It's a slow process, but I'm doing everything I can. And she's like, I don't think you are. It's like, what? You're more concerned about power. And he's like, trust me, I'm doing everything I can. Just got to be patient. Maddie found out about it, got super pissed. It's like, how dare you get in my business like this? What if I got into yours and Will's business like this? Don't you think, Nolan's doing everything he can. And Katie's like, well, I don't know if I believe you on that. She's like, I think there's a part of you that's not pushing him to do as much as he can. And then she got super offended by it. She's like, that's why you're alone, because basically all she has now is Grace. And that's what the sad part is when you see her in her kitchen by herself. She's fixing a meal, for herself, because it's like Gracie's off spending time with Lindsay, which Katie's super not happy about, but I'll get to that in a second. But it's like Bram's in his situation, and then Will's off looking for Charlie. So it's like she's left alone in that house. Like she has no one to rely on, because at least one person she had in her life other than her family was the resistance. And now like like the one person she has left is Broussard, and it's like they have to keep their distance. Another thing I'll get to later on, her only friend in the Resistance was Rachel, and she died last season, so it's like she doesn't really have anyone. Doesn't seem like outside of her family she has any friends. If she did have any friends, like besides the Resistance, it seems like they're long gone. Especially because last episode it seems like her and Broussard have a past. So what, like I said, in what regards was it a romantic situation? Were they just friends? Still up in the air in that situation, but it's so interesting because it's like Maddie is flying off the handle on her like that, but it's like what she said isn't a lie, because Nolan even said himself, it's like, we gotta be careful. We can't use up all our favors with this whole Bram situation. He broke the law. He went underneath the wall and everything. But what that means for us, if we get too involved in this, they might start questioning our own loyalty. It's like, I can help you get whatever you need. Obviously using the example of, without saying it, but Hudson and his insulin, just everything you guys need. It's like you didn't have to live in the flats anymore. They can live in a green zone. So it's like life is a lot better for them. Like Maddie doesn't have to scrounge to kind of get to what she needs for her son. So it's kind of like she's super pissed at Katie. It's kind of screw Katie. It's like, I'm no longer concerned about her and her family. Don't even let Gracie come over anymore. I'm going to send her back home with you. It's like, I'll focus on me and my son and my happiness and everything. And it's like, it's sad that like just the family's just falling further and further apart. But it's just because because there is a level where like Maddie is doing this obviously for Hudson, but I'm sure that power is a little enticing, just like it is for Nolan, as the reason why they do what they're doing. So. But essentially what it is that Nolan set Maddie up to be a part of the inner circle, these higher ups who are closer to the, because he's the second in command, because Nolan's boss is the new proxy. And so that kind of gives him and Maddie a higher position. She joins this whole group. She ends up touching some cube, and it's like I don't understand what it's about, but it's some kind of higher plane thing where it's like she saw some light or something and she got excited after she saw it. She was kind of happy. So it just seemed like maybe there's a bit of her that does kind of realize, oh man, she messed up, like doing that to Katie, kind of cutting Katie out like that. But I don't know. It's because it was legitimately from the beginning. It was almost like Nolan's literally telling you to choose between power and position and protecting your son and what you and him have versus protecting the rest of your family. That's what it was. Basically like he was almost giving you an ultimatum. It's like, yeah, we can help Bram out a lot now, or we could try a little bits at a time, helping him a little bit, and completely screw ourselves over, in the long run, or we just. Because we got to make sure that we're in a good position, because we don't want to lose our favor with these people. So, speaking of Bram, obviously he's being sent to a labor camp. He ended up lying about himself. He was like, oh, I'm 20. I was a construction worker, because his teacher was like, oh, yeah, I was a teacher, and gets knocked out and gets put back on the bus. So, obviously, heading towards the factory. It's like they can work here. If they mess up, they get beat down. They mess up a second time, they get sent to the factory. So it makes you wonder, did Bram even need to lie? Probably knew who he was because of Nolan, and was probably going to let him stay no matter what Bram said. I don't know, but I'm sure Bram's lie probably would have helped. But it almost seemed like he didn't believe Bram. But like I said, so I'm getting a feeling like it was more so like, okay, I know who you are. You got some connections. We also ended up finding out that Schneider, finally finding out what his new position is. Apparently he's working at the camp, because we ended up seeing him and Bram lock eyes. Something that did kind of cross my mind too is like, because it was never to me 100% conclusive whether or not his daughter actually took the transit pass or not last season. I think she did, but maybe she didn't. Because I think the one he gave the will was a different one. Maybe it was the same one, but I don't remember. It wasn't explicitly explained whether she really took it or not. She was saying okay, but I'm assuming she did take it. But it's just like we don't know for sure, like if she's outside of the colony or whatnot. I would assume so, because he is no longer proxy, so she wouldn't be able to be at peace. Like there'd be like even though she had problems with her dad, which kind of like I left a comment on it about the last week's episode of Colony, but obviously he had to choose certain people to take with him, and that's why his daughter has such a problem with him, because he left his wife behind and took his daughter with him, and to make sure that she was okay, because there was a limit to how many people they could take with them during this whole circumstance. So that's why he ended up leaving his ex-wife behind. Whether she's dead or not, we don't know, but at the very least, that's why it's like, oh, that's what he did that made her hate him so much. So we kind of have to wait and see. I'm very interested to see the whole Bram and Snyder situation to see what comes about that. Also, the girl that's helping him out in this episode that he kind of talks to, her, I don't know the actress's name. I've seen it come up before. I tend to forget. Like one thing that comes to my mind when it's like, oh yeah, stuff she's done. She was Anna in the Vampire Diaries. She was Jeremy's vampire girlfriend for a little while in the earlier seasons. Just one of the things, like she's been in other stuff, but that's like the first thing that kind of comes to my mind. But nevertheless, there's a whole system there because it's like a jail almost, and you see the situation of like that guy almost approaching Bram until she kind of intervenes. So it's kind of like things aren't going to be that pleasant there, especially it's like you mess up once, you get, let's say, a beat down, mess up again, you get sent to the farm, which is something I'm curious to find out more about too, is the farm, because that's something we got little looks at last season, especially when it came to Carlos. We do know that the factory is on the moon, but that's the full extent that we know of. Like, what is the factory's purpose and stuff like that? What do they have these people working on and doing? What's this whole situation? Because it came up last season about, people getting sick and everything, what that means. So, because it came up like at the beginning of the episode, it's like 1969, some government officials obviously getting some messages and they're trying to decode it, but they can't really figure it out. And there's something out there in space. It looks like something. They don't know what it is, but it's like near the moon. So it might have been the first example of the occupation, like the hosts were out there from a far off distance. So it's like, because we don't really know when exactly they made 100% contact with Earth, because obviously it happened before the arrival, because they already knew so much about Earth's history. So it's like, at what point did they make contact? And it's like, in 1969, they were like still trying to figure it out. They got the message and stuff like that. They just didn't know what it meant. So maybe around that time. So. But the point I was kind of getting back to was about Gracie. Like the fact is Katie's like super against her. Like she hasn't said anything, but it's like, oh, come on, Katie. And Gracie's like, oh, can I stay here? And Lizzie's like, oh yeah, we're still working. And then you just see Katie just going, yeah, baby, you can stay. Just make sure Maddie brings you back before it gets too late. So it's just kind of like, because she found out about the whole religious book thing last season. She's been super pissed at Lindsay ever since, but she hasn't really said anything. And because Gracie's basically thinking like, oh yeah, that basically the great day will come, because she's kind of getting swept up in this like occupational religion, which is what Nolan's a part of, which I'm guessing Maddie's kind of being indoctrinated into as well. I mean, I don't know what that's all about, because it is the inner circle. So maybe the inner circle she's becoming a part of is the part of group of people that found out about it ahead of time, people like Schneider and stuff like that. Obviously, but maybe even going as further as being part of groups that knew about it before even the people like Schneider knew, so. But then Gracie's kind of like, hey, don't, she kind of blames herself. She's like, why Will and Bram aren't there anymore? She kind of blames herself, thinking it's her fault. Katie's like, it's not your fault. But then it's like, whose fault it is, and whose fault is it? And Katie, without saying anything, is kind of like, you get the feeling like she kind of believes it's her own fault, because, all this kind of unfolded because of her actions working with the resistance. Things would have probably went a lot smoother if she wasn't working for the resistance at the time. So, but kind of putting it on hold, kind of coinciding it with the whole Jennifer thing. I don't remember who I said it was. I was wondering who it could be that was watching her. I don't remember if I said it was Jennifer or not. If past me said it might have been Jennifer, then kudos to me. But I don't remember if I said, like, who's the person watching Katie. Could we end up finding out? It is, in fact, Jennifer. And at one first I was like, okay, so is she doing that for Will's sake, or is she doing that for investigation's sake? I think it's a combination of the two. Like, more so than anything, she's keeping an eye on Katie because she knows her connection to the sale, but she hasn't said anything because she's not trying to sell Will out, because Will is kind of an ally. And we kind of also got introduced to the new boss, Dan, who was like, hey, so tell me about Will and Bo. Oh, so whatever happened to Bo? She's like, I don't know. It does make you wonder, did Will ever tell her exactly what happened with the whole Bo situation? I think I brought it up before. I wonder, is that going to be something we see this season or not? Maybe, even if it is, it's probably be something like, I don't know, because I think it's probably, if he does pop up at all, it'll probably be in a small regard. Maybe him, like, helping out Will or something. Maybe something will come up where Will has to go contact Bo to kind of get help getting back inside the wall, because without his transit pass or something, he needs someone on the outside to help him, extra help besides Devin, Because because now I'm thinking about it, it's like there's no way for him to take Charlie back home without that transit pass, so he's doubly screwed. So I mean, but still, he's got to find a way to get back. I mean, who knows? Maybe maybe Solomon traded that to one of the other warlords. But nevertheless, Jennifer's been holding on to that information, and Dan's kind of like, okay, so, this department's kind of screwed because it's like they haven't made any progress. It's like, well, I mean, to be fair, this group ended up returning the host, but granted, they're still missing a piece because Broussard and those other three took a piece from it before they left. The hosts know that's missing. They want that piece back, so just wonder about that. And they even went as far as tossing Jennifer's place, and they ended up cracking a picture of, was it her husband? Or was it fiance? I think it might have been her husband. Might have been fiance. I can't remember. But he's no longer alive, so. Because she told Will about him last season when she was kind of explaining more about her past. But, it's kind of interesting because she kind of pulls a Phyllis in a situation, and she's like, so from now on you work for me. The exact same conversation that happened to Phyllis and Katie last season. Hopefully it doesn't end the way, well, I doubt it'll end the way it did for Phyllis, because it's like she didn't really have an opportunity to really take advantage of that, because like that day that she set that up, she ended up dying like that night. So, but that was because of the resistance and everything, so I doubt she has to worry about that, because essentially she's like, I want Broussard's, like, just tell me where he is. It's like she can't, because she can't get in contact with him, because she knows if she gets in contact with him, he'll know that she's blown, that that she's working with the occupation to bring him in and stuff like that. So, but Jennifer's in a rock and a hard place, because it's like they're looking at her very suspiciously about everything that went down, and it's like they turn her apartment upside down. Like she's one of the people that's loyal because she has no choice. It's not like she really 100% believes in the occupation. She's just doing what she can to just live her day-to-day life, kind of survive, essentially. So Broussard's an ends to a means, so that she can just avoid, because he basically is like, hey, if you don't get this done, we'll basically find a job that you are better suited for. So, I mean, maybe that means sending her off to a laboring camp or something worse or something, or maybe sending her to the factory. So it's like, she's got to protect herself. So, but the fact is, she hasn't gone as far as turning Katie in, which she could, but she's not going to, because she isn't going to betray Will's trust. Because, like I said, Jennifer is kind of the new beau. She's kind of part of the inner circle. But a little bit of what I saw in the preview, it looks like she's talking to Katie in the next episode too. So I don't know. A lot of stuff went down, and it's like still so many questions about so many things. How everything is going to play out. One thing that's popping in my mind, I hope it doesn't turn into a situation where like Will ends up getting betrayed by Devin. Why I say that is because it's always like a situation where it's like, oh man, this person that you trust so much is like your partner. Literally one thing that comes to my mind, because of the actress who plays Katie, I'm blanking on her name. She played Lori on The Walking Dead in the whole Shane situation, and it's like Shane and Rick ended up in their situation, and they were partners. So it's kind of like, I hope it doesn't end like that for Will and Devin, especially because Devin's, trying to survive on her own, and here comes Will screwing everything up. Like, things weren't perfect, but for her life was this way, and it's like, Will comes in, killing Solomon, raising hell in Santa Monica, so it's like, he compromises, like, the life that she's built for herself. It might not be perfect, but it's still her life, so it might be a situation where it's like, Devin might have to betray him just to kind of stay neutral, to stay on the warlord's good sides and stuff like that. So, but then again, it's like, I don't know, like, I'm sure like Will, like, she cares about him and his family, that's why she went through the trouble of helping with Charlie. So hopefully I'm wrong in that regard, but we'll kind of have to wait and see. Just something that's kind of popped in my head. I know, drawing many different parallels, but. And because this whole Jennifer situation has come up, though, I feel like it will force Katie to have to talk to Broussard. And it does make you wonder, like, what did him and the Resistance find out about the host? Like, because obviously we've seen them in their suits, but there must be something beneath that. They were never able to crack open the suit, just, because it was, like, super hard material to cut through. So what it is that they're up to with all these quota people that they're pulling from Santa Monica, that they're having the warlords hang over, like, what's up with the factory, stuff like that. What's up with Maddie and her situation? So many questions. Hopefully we'll be getting some more answers in the future. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.